Hey everyone, how's it going? It's Franco, your business vlogger here. Today we're going to talk about podcasts, and we're actually going to launch a podcast in under 1 hour. So why are we discussing podcasts today? So the reason is there's a lot of popularity in podcasts right now, and a lot of people that I've come across, they all are saying, look, I should start a podcast, messing around. But the truth is, they come up with a lot of excuses why they don't want to do the podcast, even though they brought it up before. And the excuses range from, oh, I don't have the expensive equipment to get started, I don't have a team to edit, and I don't have the time. They think it takes a lot of time to do a podcast. And in some cases, it does. If you look at what Gary Vaynerchuk is doing, for example, they have a bunch of people that are miking him up, that are putting things at the beginning, at the end. Some other podcasters, they have some segments in which they have ads. But if you're starting off, I think that you can get started with a very simple podcast with literally no money. You can get started with your phone and you can do everything on your own. And that is what we're going to do today. We're going to prove them wrong, get those excuses out of the way, and we're going to start a podcast from scratch. All right, so let's get started with the podcast. I'm going to turn on the stopwatch so we can get an idea of how long it took us to actually do this. All right, so now that we are timing ourselves, we're going to go over the very first thing when coming up with a podcast, and that is to determine what you want your podcast to be about. And we're going to go over the app that we're going to use to be able to publish this podcast. But before we do that, we need to know what we want to be able to talk about. So Gary Vaynerchuk talks a lot about entrepreneurship. You have the Snacks Daily, which talks a lot about finance and a lot of stocks. You have How I Built This, which talks about the stories of successful founders. So what do we want to talk about in this particular podcast? And I'm going to come across just a random idea, and that will be starting off a podcast for Franco, Aquino, your business vlogger. So that's what I'm going to write here. I'm taking notes so I don't forget as I'm recording this. So I'm going to say Franco, Aquino, business vlogger. And I'm going to mention that it is going to be related to different marketing tips for small and medium sized businesses. Okay, so that is what we're going to focus on. And let's come up with a podcast name. And obviously when we get into the app, it might be possible that we don't have any particular opportunity to use the name that we come up with right now, but let's come up with one or two, and we're going to write that down. So if I'm going to focus on this podcast being named after what I'm pretty much introducing in every video that I have on YouTube, which is your business vlogger, I'm going to try to use that one as the name of the podcast, your business vlogger, right? But if that was not available, I'm going to call it Franco, the business vlogger. Let's see which of those works. Okay, so now that we have an idea of what we want the podcast to be about, we can already start downloading the app. And obviously, once we have the app, we are going to do an episode, and that is something that we still need to think about. But we're going to use this particular app. It's called Anchor, and it is a free app that I highly recommend that you download because it allows you to record a podcast segment directly within the app, and then it also allows you to publish that segment to Spotify, Apple Podcasts, I think it's Google Podcasts, and a few other distribution networks for podcasts. Okay, so let's go and find the app. I have the app here, and I'm going to show you. It's the one right in the middle, right? You see it? It's right in the middle. And I'm going to click on it. Anchor. And sorry about that, my microphone fell out of the way. I'm gonna see if I could put it back where it goes. I'm not going to restart the time, so I can get this right. All right, cool. So this is the app, and what I'm going to do now is I'm going to create an account. Now you can use your Facebook account or your email, and I'm going to go with email Because if you didn't know, I already have a podcast with Anchor, and it's something that I did about a year and a half ago. Now, in that podcast, I was talking about business tips in Spanish, but I'm not focused on that one anymore. But maybe this business vlogger one might be something that I do get involved with. So I'm going to call, it asked me for my name, so I'm going to use Franco Aquino. Okay. My email, I'm going to use one of my emails. And I'm going to come up with a password. All right, let's hope I remember that. And I'm actually using that email with another account, so I need to use a different email. Okay. Let me see the password. All right, cool. So I have created an account on Anchor with my email, and now it shows me the screen that is going to allow me to make an action or take an action, okay? So let's see where we are. So I get the options to, I want to make a new podcast, tell me about podcasting, switch my existing podcast to Anchor, or I want to listen to podcasts, okay? So those are the options that we have. And what we are going to do is that we are going to just choose, I want to make a new podcast, okay? And they're giving me the opportunity to make a new trailer, which is a new feature. I'm not exactly sure what it does, so I'm going to skip that. But I'm going to go to where it says podcasts, okay? And it's completely empty. There's nothing there, so we have to honestly optimize everything. So we're going to go where it says podcast settings, set your podcast name, and we are going to go with your business vlogger, which was the one that we said we were going to try to use. Your business vlogger. And to be honest, it sounds a little interesting because this is not like video related, but let's go with it for now. Okay, and we are going to, it asks us for a description, so we're going to say something that we said at the beginning, which is marketing tips for small and medium-sized businesses. Okay, I'm going to go with that. And then we're also going to choose a cover art. So we can search for a photo, we can upload an image if we already have one, or we can allow Anchor to choose one for me, okay? So what I was going to mention is that there's also a large variety of different platforms that you're able to use to create your own channel art. And that could be something like Canva. Canva.com is a very good resource. And they have a free account so that you're able to create some designs for your different projects. So check that out. But if you also have the skills in Photoshop, you can use Photoshop. So that's something to consider. But I'm not very, I would say, creative. I don't really know how to use any of these particular tools very well. So what I will use is the feature to search for a photo. And this is powered by Unsplash, which is a platform that really provides a lot of free to use images. So I'm going to choose, let's see what we can get if we look for business. Boom, awesome. There's a bunch of different options. So I'm going to use the one that, actually, I'm going to see if there's one for marketing. Marketing. Okay, I'm going to go for the one here that says, think outside the box. Let's check that one out. Perfect. This is how it looks. Let's see. There we go. Think outside the box. Okay, so I'm going to go continue. To be honest, this is looking pretty good. I didn't think it was going to look this good. Okay. So we came across an issue. And that issue is that there's already text behind within the image, and it's asking me to add an additional text to that. So I'm going to use something completely different. I'm going to use one right here that shows a light bulb and a person holding the light bulb. So we're going to use that. Okay, so continue. And let's see what we do with this. So, okay, great. So I'm gonna use Little Bold, which is honestly one of my favorite fonts. And it says your business vlogger, great. I'm gonna put it there. Let's see if we can change the color up a bit. Let's see, bottom, what about bottom? Your business vlogger. Let's see, I think white is fine. All right, great, we're gonna go with that. It's gonna say your business vlogger, and it's going to have a light bulb and a hand. And to be honest, that looks pretty good, check it out. Okay, so we're gonna continue, and then we're going to choose a category. We're going to choose business, and we're going to choose marketing, because that's what we're focused on. And then for language, we're going to choose English, because that's what I speak most of the time. But if you do Spanish, or you know French, Portuguese, you could go that route as well. And we're going to go next. Okay, and you finished setting up your podcast setup. This will make your podcast available on all major platforms, including Spotify and Apple Podcasts, which is good because those two platforms, they have, I would say, a good chunk of the whole app, the podcast listener audience, really. So, okay, I'm going to say great, thanks. Perfect, your podcast is all set up. So, great, we have our podcast set up, and now we have to record an episode, and then we're going to publish it, okay? So this is where I need to come up with something that I'm going to say in my first episode. So I'm going to start off with an introduction to what this podcast is about. And I'm going to talk about a few examples of some videos I've shared already on YouTube so that people get an idea of maybe some of the things that I will be talking about on this podcast, okay? So let me get a drink of water real quick. Awesome. All right. So we are 10 minutes in, by the way. We're still 10 minutes in, and now we're going to record an episode. Ideally, I'd like for it to be about 10 minutes. Actually, no, 5 minutes long for the first episode. I think that'd be fine so that people know what this podcast is about. And then further or ongoing podcasts might be 10 minutes long at most. I mean, some of the ones I listen to, for example, How I Built This, those are maybe an hour long. Some Gary Vee podcast episodes are between maybe 5 minutes, 10 minutes, or maybe sometimes even an hour. So, there's a range for everyone. It depends on what you want to talk about. In general, I don't want to talk too much because some people might get a little bored. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to aim for 5 minutes, and I'm going to introduce everyone to my podcast, which is a podcast that is going to focus on repeating some of the things that I've shared on YouTube for that audience that prefers to be able to listen when they're on the go, okay? So now the cool thing, like I mentioned, is that Anchor allows you to be able to record your episode within the app, okay? And it also allows you to put some nice little intros with some music, some little outros. And later on, if that it's of interest to you, which obviously if you want to make podcasts in your future, you can also look at adding some advertising placements within your podcast, okay? So that's something to keep in mind. It might interest you, and Anchor actually has a nice little tool to be able to help you with that. Okay, so we're going to click on Tools, and then it tells us record or import some audio. So we don't have any anything to import, so we're going to just create something within the app, and then we're going to distribute it, okay? So we're going to tap to get started, and we're going to click on record, and we're going to start recording. So I honestly have not set up anything that I'm going to say in this first episode, so I'm thinking about what I'm going to say. So give me like 10 seconds. All right, I think I'm ready. Let's try this out. Hi everyone, this is Franco Aquino, your business vlogger. For those of you that are new to this podcast, I like to talk a lot about different marketing tips for small and medium-sized businesses. And a lot of the things that I share on YouTube, I would like to start bringing them over to this podcast so that those that like to listen on the go are able to listen on the go, and they're able to learn while they're driving or at the gym, because to be honest, that's what I do. I like to learn when I am doing things in which really I can spend the time to be able to learn something new. So some of the examples of things that we will be discovering or going over in this podcast include how to use different social media tools to be able to get sales, how to be able to get sales with a nice process in place, as well as how to manage your different marketing strategies so that you're able to focus on the long term. So, for example, one of the, I would say, most important things that every business owner needs to keep in mind is the customer lifetime value. Now, the customer lifetime value is extremely important because as a business owner, you do not honestly just care for one purchase from one customer. If you're able to get that customer to come in once a month, that customer is going to be worth 12 times what they would have been worth if you only focus on bringing them in once. And that's extremely important. And that's one of the examples of what we're going to go over on this podcast. And to bring that together, it's like, we're going to go over marketing tools and tricks and tips that you can use to be able to increase that customer lifetime value. And so, for example, sometimes using different loyalty programs helps improve that customer lifetime value, providing people a nice little move so that you encourage them to make a first purchase and come back later on. That is something that is extremely powerful to increasing your customer lifetime value. So about me, just a little bit about me so that you can determine whether or not you want to tune in for the other upcoming episodes, is that I am a co-founder of a marketing agency. We are called Ren Marketing, and we are based right here in Miami, Florida. And a little bit more, I am actually from Peru. I grew up in Peru. Actually, I didn't really grow up in Peru. I was born in Peru. I grew up in Miami since I was like about 3.5. So everything I like to do is really related to marketing and business, but I do really like the Peruvian food. So if you never know, you might find me making some references to Peruvian food every now and then because it's just extremely good. And if you haven't had any Peruvian food, I highly suggest that you get started with a ceviche. And when you're eating that ceviche, just keep in mind that Franco's always going to be there to talk to you about marketing strategies, so that if you ever open up your own restaurant for Peruvian food, that Franco might give you some tips of what you're able to do to get a customer in for the first time and then have that customer come back over time. And yeah, so thank you so much for checking out this episode. I think that this is going to be a very nice journey, a very interesting journey, because the popularity around podcasts, it's growing tremendously, and it's definitely going to be something that is going to continue evolving. And if you didn't know, I am actually recording this episode right now on the Anchor app, and Anchor is a free tool so that if you want to get started with your own podcast for your own business, it's something that I highly recommend you get on your phone. And interesting enough, some big companies are investing in these podcasting apps like Spotify. Spotify actually owns Anchor. So you know that when you're downloading Anchor to your phone, that it's a long-term play. It's not something for this year only. So yeah, keep that in mind. Keep in mind that if you want to get something done, I am here to help you know how you might be able to do it from a marketing perspective, but that you yourself can also take action, and hopefully some of the tools that I share, like for example Anchor, is able to help you in getting the right direction or take the right step forward. So until the next episode, this is Franco Aquino, your business vlogger. I hope that you subscribe so that you can stay in touch with my other episodes and you can see and learn a lot about what I have to say on all things marketing. So until next time, it's been a pleasure to have you on my first episode, and I hope that you stick around. Have a great week, day, night, morning, wherever you are. Thank you. All right. So, I'm sorry. I did go a little bit, um, off track several times with the whole Peruvian dish and stuff. This is all for an example, right? Great. So now that we have the episode, and it is just like I would say 5 seconds over 5 minutes, which is the interesting part because I was about to finish recording at 3 minutes, but like I mentioned, my goal is five. So now that we have the episode ready, we can actually preview it, which is neat. You can click on the play button.
Hi everyone, this is Franco Aquino, your business vlogger. For those of you that are new to this podcast, I like to talk a lot about different marketing tips for small and medium-sized businesses. And a lot of the things that I share on YouTube, I would like to start bringing them over to this podcast so that those that like to listen on the go are able to listen on the go and they're able to learn while they're driving or in.
Cool. So it sounds good, and that just goes to to show that you don't need expensive equipment. I have an iPhone 6s, as you can tell, and to be honest, it's good enough to be able to get started. So if you definitely have a phone, something that is able to download the Anchor app, you can get started. So don't worry about having the most updated technology or spending money to be able to get started. Just being able to have the minimum piece of equipment, your phone can help you really get the ball rolling. Okay, so now that we have actually previewed it and it sounds okay, obviously if I were to actually want to do a legit episode, I would make sure that I had a script or more bullet points because I don't have any bullet points on my computer right now for what I just recorded. But I would have more of a structure for what I'm going to say, and I would already know if this is something that's good enough for my podcast. I think it's okay for this example, this video, but I wouldn't just normally share something like this, okay? Now, the cool thing with Anchor is that you're also able to trim the beginning or the end, so that if, let's say, at the beginning you recorded something that you don't really think you should have recorded, you can trim it. You could also add some background music, which I'm not going to do, but that option's also there, which is pretty nice if you want to have some of that little background music that maybe might be a little positive, a little negative, a little slow. It's up to you. So I'm going to click on save, okay? And I am going to click on ready to publish. So we're going to publish our first episode. So I'm going to click on yes, I'm ready to publish. Now I need an episode name or episode title. So I'm going to call it Welcome to Franco's. Let's see, Franco's podcast. Your business vlogger. Cool. And I'm going to say for description, in this episode, Franco Aquino introduces himself and his podcast. His podcast. He goes over the type of content, or I'm going to say the type of marketing content you can expect. I think that's fine. I'm going to click on done. Okay, this is pretty neat. They also allow you to put an episode number, season number, but we're just going to keep it very simple. We're going to click on publish now and add optional episode tags. So these are some good things that then you could look into later. This is for like the optimization of like the search engines so that people are able to find your podcast or your podcast episodes within Apple Podcasts, within Spotify. So I'm going to add one. I'm going to call it marketing tips. That's one. I'm going to use another one, marketing for what? Let's see. I'm going to call small business. Or I'm getting too excited because I like to think about SEO every now and then. Small business marketing. I'll just add 2 for now. I'm going to click on done. And your first episode is live. Check that out. Look at that. So awesome. So awesome. And it's been 5 minutes and 8 seconds. So that means that we've already created our episode. We've already published it. Let me see how long we've actually been, how long we've actually been spending on this episode or creating this podcast and launching our first episode. So that you know, it took us about 23 minutes and 42 seconds. So I'm going to call it took us less than 24 minutes to be able to create a podcast and create an episode and publish it. Okay? So, what does this pretty much tell us, guys, everyone? We have some key takeaways, right? And those key takeaways include that don't overthink starting a podcast. And to be honest, if you're a business owner, don't overthink a lot of things. Consider what you might be able to do if you were to take one small step forward. Because some things are easier than, I know how everyone says some things are easier said than done. Well, in this case, it was pretty easy to say that you could start a podcast, and it was actually easy to start a podcast. And you can get started for free. So there's no excuse for saying, look, I don't have the equipment. iPhone success. For saying I don't have the time. To be honest, I did an episode in about 5 minutes, and obviously it might take a little bit longer so it comes out a little more entertaining, but it's not that bad, right? And that's pretty much it. And you don't have to be perfect. You'll improve over time. So definitely, if you want to get started with a podcast, I hope that this video has helped you get an idea of how you can get started in less than 24 minutes with your first podcast, your first episode. And really, if you feel that you've learned something from this video, make sure to give it a thumbs up or like, and that you subscribe to watch my other videos. I had been wanting to do this for like the last week, because now I can send it over to the friends that I have that have all been saying that they wanted to start a podcast, but they hadn't done so. So yeah, I think that's it. And in the comments, or actually in the description below, I'll have a few links to some of the resources that I mentioned today, like Canva, like Anchor. So feel free to check those out if you're interested. So until the next one, this is Franco, your business vlogger. It's been a pleasure to have you here, and I'm out.